Good. All right. Oh, hang on. Why isn't it? Oh, there we go. Now, just quickly, the session content. We are going to try and do this in a real whiz through in about 30 minutes and to allow plenty of time for questions afterwards. So if I speed talk, apologies. I'll try not to go too fast. So we're just going to, first of all, give a brief overview of who we are, the difference that our funding we want to make with our funding, and then importantly, what funding is available and how you should apply. And then after that, we'll have time for the questions. So just to give you an indication of we're one of, if not the biggest funding of community projects in England. And in Suffolk alone, currently, we're funding 134 live grants, totaling almost 16 million. Of those, majority is through our Reaching Communities Fund, and the smaller amount, but still significant, is our Awards for All funds. And I'm going to explain the difference between those two funding streams as we go through the presentation. So we do have substantial funding available, and hopefully now we can get some environmental groups applying for that. As I mentioned, we've just gone through a reset for the community fund, and the emphasis on the reset was to make sure to really bring communities right into the centre of everything we do and everything we fund. And also to have more impact. And to do that, we're actually going to be a bit more targeted in what we were doing when we've normally done previously, and when we've funded anything, a huge range of projects, very open to what people could apply for. But now we've got four main funding streams, two priorities and four funding streams that we're going to focus the money on, one of which is the environment. And I apologise because I'm going to have to give you the broad overview of each of the funding streams, because this isn't just strictly environmental funding, it's environmental funding within the bigger funding stream. So I just need to give you the framework just to make sure that you understand, and you can see whether you're eligible and how your project might fit with that. So we've got two funding streams available through the National Lottery Community Fund. The first is National Lottery Awards for All, and this is a smaller funding stream that goes up to 20,000, and then Reaching Communities, which is over 20,000. Now, all applications, I don't know whether anyone's been and had a look at the website, but there's a lot of information. All the applications are done online, and you can go to the website and do your application there. But just to emphasise as all, that if anyone has any specific communication or accessibility requirements, we have alternative ways to submit applications, so we could discuss that later on or at the time of application. Now, in terms of who can apply for either of these funding streams, I'm not going to go through the whole list, but basically if you're a registered charity, a constituted voluntary or community group, not-for-profit company or community interest company, or a statutory body such as local authorities, councils or schools. And if you go to the website, we're going to share the presentation later, so you can access the links there, and on the website you'll find much more information about, and you can check whether you're eligible to apply or not. What can you apply for? Now, we are very open with what we fund. We don't have any real restrictions. We can fund running costs, equipment, one-off events, staffing costs and salaries, training, transport, utilities, and also land building or refurbishment projects, i.e. sort of capital projects. And for Reaching Communities funding, we can also fund, we're very happy to fund organisational development costs, including costs to help you become more environmentally sustainable. And Heidi will talk more about that later. Now, the National Lottery Awards for All is the one we'll do first. And as I said, that's from 300 to 20,000, and that's for up to 2 years. You can only hold one of these grants at a time, and for a maximum of 20,000 within a 10th month period. Now, this is really targeted at smaller groups, community groups who just want funding for smaller projects. And it's a much simpler and a quicker way of getting funding, so it's less arduous, especially for smaller groups who might not have too much capacity for this type of fundraising. It's a one-stage application online, and you can apply at any time. It's an open grant, so there's no restrictions on that. Just to mention also, however, that the Awards for All is one of the biggest programs, and we currently are experiencing very high demands, but generally we say that you should hear around 4 months. And as I said, it's a one-step process. You do your application online, it's assessed, and then you hear hopefully within 4 months whether you've got the funding or not. Now, the priorities for applying for the Awards for All, as you can see, there's 4 priorities: bringing people together, improving places and spaces that matter to communities, helping people to reach their potential, and supporting people, communities and organisations facing more demands and challenges because of the cost of living crisis. So it's very broad. This is for the general priorities, but again, in a minute, Heidi's going to talk specifically about the environmental stream and how the environmental projects fit within these priorities. So I think that's you. Oh, one more. It's quite a simple process. It's just 3 questions. You have to provide information about your organisation, your address, contact details, registration and stuff. But in terms of the actual sort of the core of the application, basically what we want to know is, what would you like to do? How does your project meet our funding priorities? And how does your project involve your community? And the big thing to remember with this, and also with reaching communities, is it starts with community, and the focus is on community. So it's about what you want to do with your communities in the project that you want to propose. And I'll hand over to Heidi now about the environment and how that sits within this funding stream.
So as Sheila said, you can apply for environmental things within the normal Awards for All scheme, but because a lot of organisations weren't giving us the information that we wanted, we opened up on the 25th of June, and it's open to the 17th of December, a separate door to get into the Awards for All. So it's kind of a test and learn for us to see what groups are asking for, what types of money they want. And when that 17th of December shuts, you will still be able to apply to the normal Awards for All through the normal door, and they will be reviewing how this has gone and whether they're going to keep a separate door open, create another funding stream. So we don't know what that will look like now, but up until the 17th of December, when you go to the Awards for All page on the website, you'll see a link there that says if you're looking to apply for environmental funding, then if you click on that link, it will take you to a page which is giving you extra information about the types of things we're looking to fund. And so you can see on that page, it's just got a very simple: help people connect with and care for nature in their area, and to hold a positive, to make a positive difference to the environment. So because this is specifically about the environment, I will sort of like go through some of the things which are on the web page now. So this basically reflects, and this is quite a similar to the reaching communities priorities as well, that we're looking at the climate and nature emergency that we're facing at the moment. And although they're global issues, we understand that local action can make a big difference, and that's what we're looking to fund here through the Awards for All, as Sheila said before, because it's a smaller grant over a shorter period of time. This is normally going to smaller organisations. And it does actually say among the criteria for Awards for All that at times when we have particularly high interest, we will prioritise smaller organisations for the funding as well. So through this stream, we want to help people to connect with and care for nature in their area. So we want to fund projects that will help people, help people to engage with good quality, accessible nature close to their home. So that's looking for areas where they maybe don't have as much access to green space, or that the green space that they've got is low quality. It's not got much biodiversity going on there. So under this, we aim to fund projects that make positive difference to local green spaces and help local people connect to nature. So we're looking at the sort of intersectionality there of people might not have a great green space, but also they might not think that that green space is for them. They might not sort of be used to going out into green spaces. So we're looking for projects that would help and encourage people to go out and connect with the green spaces around them, because we know that then helps them to care about what happens to their local biodiversity. So making a positive difference on green spaces, you could do this by creating community gardens or shared places for growing food or plants, rewilding or restoring neglected green areas, running volunteer sessions to care for green spaces, and improving parks and playgrounds that support nature and wildlife. On the web page, it also goes through some of the things that we would not fund, and under that making a positive difference, then some of the things that we would not fund is, for example, putting solar panels on a sports club. And the reason for that is that if the sports club is just used for sporting activities, it doesn't have that wider community benefit. And again, as Sheila pointed out at the top, our sort of strap line for the funding is it starts with community. So we're always looking for that impact on the wider community. An international skills challenge for young people, a project which is exploring sustainability through game design. Again, that's something that we wouldn't be looking to fund because it doesn't show a clear local benefit, a benefit within this country, or an impact to the wider community. So you can see the theme coming there, that it's got to be able to evidence that impact to the wider community. And an in-school environmental education programme. So a project that was delivered in the classroom base as part of the curriculum. It's repeating content that's already taught in schools and doesn't go beyond standard lessons. So that's something we call additionality. It needs to be something over and above what there's a statutory requirement to do. So if we look at the how to connect local people with nature, some of the examples of the types of project that we might fund would be running outdoor learning activities to help people engage with nature and improve their well-being, organising activities in nature for people who do not usually access green spaces, creating or improving community allotment plots with wildlife friendly features, offering volunteering in horticulture or community farming, and providing outdoor therapy that supports people and the environment. So under that help connect local people to nature, again, examples of projects that we would not look to fund is an outdoor classroom and sensory garden in a school. And again, that's because the local community would have very limited access to it. So again, it's that theme of the wider community not getting a benefit from that project. A garden makeover by college students. So there would be the project would be supporting them learning about sort of like green things and outdoor, but again, there isn't that wider community benefit there. A one-off community festival that included a commitment to sustainability but didn't actually lay on any environmentally sustainable activities within it. So that's not aligning to the programme's aim. So that wouldn't be something we'd be looking to fund. And then if your project involves animals, we can only fund the parts that benefit people and communities. So we do fund projects that involve animals, but we can't fund activities that are only involving animals. And then going back to the making the positive difference with the environment, what we're looking to fund there is the help and care for the environment and the responding to climate challenges. So under this, we aim to deliver projects that deliver sustainable activities and help people to reduce carbon and save energy. So examples of the types of projects that we would run there is running repair and reuse sessions such as bikes or furniture, setting up food growing projects, redistributing food from supermarkets and shops that would otherwise go to waste, and using nature-based solutions to local climate risks like planting trees to reduce heat in urban areas or using plants to help flood prevention. So if you go onto the website, it goes into those in more detail. There are more examples, but we can move on to the larger grant scheme now, to the Reaching Communities. I'll hand back to Shelagh.
Thanks, Heidi. Okay, so as I mentioned, Reaching Communities is for higher funding levels that start, so anything over 20,001. And really they can go up to several hundred, hundreds of thousands of pounds, depending on the size of the project, the type of work being done, the size of the organisation. So generally the applications come from larger organisations, but what's very helpful and very handy with the Awards for All is quite often we get smaller organisations who will apply and implement projects under Awards for All, and then if they want to grow or if they want to apply for bigger funding, then it's a good step up to Reaching Communities as a bigger funding stream. Unlike Awards for All, so it's anything over 20,000. It can be up to 5 years. So it is a much longer period as well. It is, however, because it's a bigger funding stream, it's a slightly more complex, I would say, a longer process. It's a 2-stage application. Again, applications are online with other formats available. And with the application, it's putting in an initial idea, which is done online, then that's assessed. And then if it meets our priorities or if it's a project of interest, then we will take it to a second stage, and there'll be a little bit more about that later. And also the other thing to remember for organisations applying for Reaching Communities funding is that requests should be proportionate to an organisation's income and experience. So obviously, if we got 500,000 requests from an organised community group with an income of 5,000 a year, we would, we would have to have a look at that very closely. Again, with part of the reset for Reaching Communities, we have, as I mentioned, we have made our funding, want it to be a bit more targeted. And one of the first priorities that we're using to make the funding more targeted is to support places, people or communities experiencing higher levels of poverty, disadvantage or discrimination. And we're supporting people and communities to shape decisions that affect their lives, and also to align strongly with at least one of our missions. So I'll go through those 3 different parts of the criteria one by one. Now, priority 1, what we want to do is support people most in need. Our funding is open to everyone, but we will prioritise within successful applications, organisations that are supporting or helping communities experiencing high levels of poverty, discrimination and disadvantage. Also communities that are least set up to help and support people, and projects and organisations supporting people or communities. And that's a bit of a Sorry, that's a bit, I'm just repeating myself there. And also projects that work to address barriers to participation. Now, this relates to the very broad themes, you know, and the missions that I will go through in a minute, of which the environment is one. So I'm not going to spend too much time on going through each of these, because Heidi will explain in the environmental stream. You'll see when she talks about that, how environmental projects fit into this priority. The second priority we have is that projects must support communities to shape the decisions that affect their lives. And I think one of the key things, as we said before, it's around starting with community, and it's the recognition and the acknowledgement that communities and people and individuals know far better than we do what needs to be done in their community to improve things or to make a difference. So when we're looking at applications for reaching communities, we do look for projects that are going to meaningfully involve the community in the design, development and delivering of the project. We look to see whether the organisation is run or led by people with personal experiences of the issues that the project is trying to deal with, and supporting people to influence decisions. So it's giving power to people as well to have a voice within the work that's being done in their communities, and communities having real control over things that are important to them. So again, as we keep emphasising, it all starts with community. So if you remember that, you'll be fine. Now, as I mentioned, we used to fund everything and anything really up until last year, but we've now had this reset and we're focusing our funding on 4 key areas. And I'm not going to go through all of them in detail. As you can see, the environment is number 4. But I'll just mention them and you can get more information, because I know that we're running out of time. So the first priority is about providing inclusive places, spaces and activities, especially for communities where people are least able to come together, helping children and young people to thrive, helping communities to be healthier and to address health inequalities, and also the number 4, be environmentally sustainable. And that's the one that Heidi's going to talk to at the moment. So I'm just going to skip through those and come through to the environmental ones, and Heidi will talk more about the projects that we fund within the Reaching Communities environmental stream. Sorry if that was a bit garbled.
You'll be getting the slides, so you'll be able to read it, and most of that information is on the website as well. So our fourth mission, or one of our 4 missions, is to be environmentally sustainable. And 3 key points that we flag with that is empowering people to engage with climate issues and adapt to the impacts of a changing climate. Taking part in activities to make positive environmental impacts, like reducing carbon emissions or creating space for wildlife, and helping communities to have access to quality nature by increasing the amount and quality of natural space for wildlife, meaning people can experience nature around them and that more varieties of wildlife can thrive. So different words, but quite a similar sort of ethos, quite looking for quite similar impacts to the Awards for All. As I said before, we are considering both the climate emergency and the nature emergency here. So projects that are looking to address one or the other of those come under this be environmentally sustainable mission. The impacts of those emergencies are not felt equally by all. So we're looking to focus our projects on those most affected by the negative environmental impacts, and are least engaged currently with environmental action. So that comes with part of our priority 1, looking to support communities that are facing the biggest discrimination, disadvantage and poverty. So looking to address projects to those who are affected by the biggest negative impacts and who are currently least engaged in environmental action. So promoting environmental justice and providing access to quality nature. And we've put that word quality nature in. If you're environmental groups, I'm sure you've got an idea of what that means, but it means, you know, we're not looking to put grass in. We're looking to put in a wildflower meadow rather than a lawn with stripes on. So quality nature that's actually going to be increasing the biodiversity of the flora and or fauna, hopefully both. In relation to climate change, we want to ensure that the communities who are most impacted and have the least opportunity to take positive action are empowered to work towards fair and inclusive climate solutions, and that communities benefit from taking part in positive environmental action with improved health, well-being, skills and connectivity. So those are some of the impacts that we'd be expecting to come out of those projects as well. With access to quality nature, we're looking for communities who don't have access to green spaces and nature around them. We're looking to support them to get that access. And then so that means that they don't get the understanding to appreciate and realise the importance in terms of protecting and caring for that nature. So that's why we're looking to increase, that's the impact that we're looking to have from increasing that access to nature. So we want to ensure that people are able to engage with nature so they can appreciate it, understand it and care for it. So in summary, we're looking to build awareness of the problems, enable communities to identify solutions, and again that's coming back to it starts with community, and that second priority that we want communities to be empowered to be involved in the decisions that are affecting them, and then to empower the community action from that. And that is a very short quick summary of the Be Environmentally Sustainable mission.
Thanks, Heidi. I won't go in. I want to leave a bit of time for questions, but just as I mentioned, for the reaching communities, it is a bit of a longer process. It's 2 stages. In the first stage, you'll just need to answer 4 questions and give us the broad framework and the idea. What's the idea? What's your proposal? And then we assess that, and if it aligns with our priorities, then applications are invited to stage 2. And then at stage 2, we ask for a bit more information. We do try to be proportional, so we'll obviously won't ask for as much information for someone asking for a smaller organisation asking for 50,000. Obviously, if we've got an organisation asking for 500,000, we're going to want a lot more information. But so we are proportional, we're very conversational, and we're very supportive. At least we try to be. And of course, with the 2-step process, and because of the assessment process, it does take longer, and it can take from the beginning to end to up to about 9 months at the moment. If you're successful, I won't go into this. I don't think it's necessary. I think it's more important to have questions. But that slide, when you come to it, when we circulate the presentation, that's just gives an overview of what it looks like, what happens when you've got the money, and how things work, setting up the grant and also reporting afterwards. So I think I'll stop sharing and throw the, hang on, where am I? I've lost stop sharing. There, is that, can you see me? Is that gone?
Yeah,
it has.
Yeah,
Thank you
and
so much.
you'll see at the end, in the last slide, it's got the contact details. Heidi and I actually work on reaching communities funding stream, and Awards for All is managed. It's all online and it's managed by another team. But I've put my email address there, and I'm very happy if you've got initial questions. You can either ring directly to the Awards for All team, or you can drop me an email and we can have a quick conversation. If you want some just want to clarify anything. So I just want to emphasize, and I will again at the end, we're here to answer any questions now, but if you go away and you want to make contact, then please, we encourage you to do so, because it's a new funding stream, and we really want and need to get out there and start meeting environmental groups and speaking to them and seeing what are the sort of the projects that need funding. So we'll hand it over to you now.
Awesome. Thank you very much. That was really, really interesting. I think I'm certainly very educated about the process, and I hope everyone else is. So I will sort of open the floor to our attendees for questions. You should be able to unmute yourselves if you sort of put your hand up, so we can sort of do it in a one at a time approach. If you've got a question, you can also, as I mentioned earlier, just chuck a question into the chat and I can read it out on your behalf if anyone has anything they want to know.
Yeah, good evening. So I'm Toby. I work for CIC Greener Ipswich, and we do a lot of regreening, and we work. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. Okay, so we work in partnership with Hollesley Bay, and we have a planting arrangement with them, and we try and help ex-offenders on day release, and we get them out and we get them planting and all good for their mental health and things like this, and then we kind of give them a bit of hope for the future. So we have done about 83 baskets in Ipswich High Street, and lots of planters so far, and we're basically trying to regreen rundown areas within Ipswich. We're working on rainfall systems and things like that, just trying to make the place better. So that's where we are at the moment. So I think what you've just said to us, I think we probably could well fit the criteria.
You want to
Any thoughts?
make any comment, Sheila, or?
As Heidi said previously, if you go to the website and you can get much more information there. It certainly sounds, especially sort of with the rejuvenation in Ipswich, which it does sound something of it, that aligns with the priorities. So have another look, and then if you wanted to just drop us an email, we're happy to arrange a chat to discuss it further.
Okay, wonderful.
What did you say, Heidi?
Yeah, I think the community aspects of it would be really interesting. So drawing out your if you're working, if part of what you're applying for is working with ex-convicts.
We're working with ex-offenders, giving them some hope, giving them some potential for the future. But we also have a range of volunteers that work with us, probably about 15 or 20 at the moment, who are keen to get on with stuff. And we're a CRC, so we've got some projects coming up for the next 3 or 4 months. Community projects. My speciality is vegetables and fruits, but a lot of it is flower based. We want to engage with the local community. We've got 2 or 3 sites in mind which we are talking to Ipswich Borough Council about, where we can improve the areas. So I'm really glad that I joined this meeting this evening, and I think I'm going to have to put something together and send it across to you. So thank you very much for both of you for your information.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting when you're looking at your impacts. You've kind of got 2 different beneficiary groups. You've got the volunteers who are maybe part of the delivery, but you've got the ex-convicts, and then you've got the wider community, and it's how you're bringing the wider community in with that. So you're
from both angles.
You're changing
we're changing the narrative. That's what we're trying to do.
Yeah. And then how do you actually engage and bring them in to do it? So you've put a planter out, but how do you engage people with that area? How do you, it's kind of the impact.
A lot of it has actually been through people just walking past and saying, do you know what, I think you're doing a really good job. Do you need help? Do you and we've had lots of so I think we started off about a year ago, we had 4 or 5 volunteers, and we now have 27. And they help with the watering of everything through the summer and what have you. And we're going to have a little meeting for all our volunteers and other people who are interested early October in Ipswich, and just try and bring everyone together, sort of people up here, but also people down there from all all different levels. And I think we're doing something good. But I represent
Excellent.
Greener Ipswich, so
Yeah. So let's go on to
Hey,
Sue.
that sounds brilliant. Yeah, if Sue,
Yeah.
you want to ask your question? Oh, Sue,
You're
you've muted yourself.
I muted my. Hello, sorry, you unmuted
Sue.
me. Hi, yeah, I'm Sue Hagley, and I'm part of a working group that we've called ourselves Ipswich Umbrella, and we are planning to set up under the Climate Emergency Centre remit. I don't know if you've heard of those, to take on an empty shop and bring it back into use for repair cafes and community type activities, recycling, green energy, things like that. So my question really is, we have located a shop. We have been given an offer of some seed funding, which will last us for a short amount of time. Can we make an application in advance? You said it's got 4 months to go. We're not that far. Is it possible to make an application and sort of put it on ice until we get to the point where we need it?
Do you want to go for that one,
Just
Sheila?
Well, I might leave that one to
ahead.
you, Heidi.
So I'm just going to go on and check with Reaching Communities, which is the programme we work with. You can, once you're awarded, you have 6 months to begin. I don't know whether that's the same with Awards for All. I would think it is, because you have to put the start date that you want in. So if it was within that sort of time scale, so they say you can't have a start time that's, sooner than 4 months, because you've got to give them 4 months, and then if they have 6 months. So if we go on to the next question, I will carry on looking and see if I can find an answer for that.
Hopefully we would be up and running, because things are gradually falling into place, but the money that we have been maybe allocated is only will run out. And I'm looking at the end of that bit, so hopefully we would be working already. Anyway, thank you.
Okay,
Brilliant. If Paul, you want to ask your question now, I think you were next.
Yes, thanks very much. I'm from Hadley Environmental Action Team, HEAT. Hadley's 10,000 people, pretty rural, mixed community, not that rich. And we've been going for about 6 years. We're a kick. We got quite a lot of projects that do the kind of stuff that you're doing already in terms of nature presentation and volunteering. But we're thinking this time next year of running a river festival. There's been quite a lot of dispute in the town around the river, because on Storm Babette, quite a lot of houses got flooded, and there's a sluice gate at the end of the river, at the end of the town, and there's quite a lot of people who want the sluice gates open, and there's quite a lot of people who want the sluice gates shut in order to keep the river high, and as it always has been. So there's a kind of sluice gate situation in Hadley. There's often in small towns, and a river festival seems like a good way to bring people together and to think about the river in the wider sense of what it does for the town, what it does for the watershed. So this would be a Grants for All award. Is that suitable? Because from what you're outlining of the Awards for All environmental stream, it didn't seem to land directly there. There's lots of environmental bits in there, but there's nothing, it's not going to leave any lasting impact. We've got 500 supporters and 50, 60 members of the KIC itself, so the community engagement is already existing. So the question is, would that be suitable for an Awards for All? And also, you said that was more directed for small organisations. What's your definition of small organisation?
small is the NVCO definition of large organisation. So actually it's worded as we won't we will prioritise organisations that are not large. So I think the large is 1 million. So as long as you're
All
under
small.
that, yeah, it's not very, very small, but we do get some of the really big charities coming into us. Sheila, do you want to comment on the one-off activity? Or
Yeah, well, we do fund events, but again, you know, it's going back and just sort of seeing how it sort of links with but I guess with the flood mitigation, I don't know, because that from the environmental side of it, Heidi, bringing the community together.
yeah, so there's definitely the bringing community together with one-off events. Even for awards for all, they're normally looking for something extra, so either activities that lead up to it, or and that's the celebration at the end. For example, growing food and then having a celebratory harvest festival that brings the community together, or you know, having a one-off event that launches a series of activities, promotes a series of activities afterwards. So you're doing that, bringing the community together. You're doing the education of the community.
So we have lots of those running already, like a climate cafe and a forest school. Could we add those in? I mean, they wouldn't be new, but they would be, as you know, yeah.
Yeah, they don't need to be new, so we can put money, but if you're funding those already, then that's fine. But you just say, okay, we're doing all of these things and we want to put, you know, a big one-off thing on it. And on that point, I would say the smallest award for all that I've seen recently was £795. So we do the smaller size, the 300,000. And if you're just asking for a small amount of money, which is what you need, say 3,000, 5,000 to run a one-off project, then do ask for that, because we can obviously fund you know, for a £20,000, if we get 4 at 5,000, we can help 4 organisations then. So we welcome and enjoy those projects, as you know, sort of like being small projects. We know that a small amount of money can really help sort of small organisations. So don't think that you need to be asking for that 20,000 end.
One last
Can I
question,
just ask
Sheila.
a quick question, Paul? KIC, what does KIC stand for?
Community Interest Company.
Oh, sorry, I was hearing it as kick, as in
booting a football around.
And Sheila, you said you'd
you.
put your email somewhere, but I can't see it in chat. Have you put it up
You'll
there?
get that
Okay,
where
great.
I'll be forwarding the presentation to Rowan tomorrow, and it'll have it on. He can circulate that, and it will be on. It's on the last slide. Yeah.
Awesome. Nick, if you want to shoot with your question.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for the presentation. It's very interesting. We're a farm in West Suffolk working with a environmental charity. In fact, it's a KIC too. And they in turn work with local young people on a whole bunch of nature restoration and educational projects. Now, does this organisation need to be based in Suffolk, or doesn't it matter?
I would say no, but the work has to be done in Suffolk.
Yeah, the beneficiaries are in Suffolk.
Oh well, I guess for no, I'm going down my own presentation now. East Anglia, it will come to us big. Well, how would you describe that? I mean, it doesn't. They don't have to be. It doesn't have to be located in the same place, does it?
We basically, reaching communities is England wide. So you can deliver anywhere in England. It depends what team you go to. So we work on a sort of a patch base, knowing the local area. So if your headquarters is based outside, but you're going to be delivering in, then it would come to us for a decision.
Okay, no, because the farm is in Suffolk and the beneficiaries in Suffolk and all the projects in Suffolk, but the KIC is actually based in, somewhere. Is it based on the edge of London?
If you were
because what happens is it goes in, doesn't it? Goes you do the online application, and then depending on where it is, then it will be sent to the relevant team.
Okay.
Yeah, you state where you.
So it sounds like it would end up with you. Yeah, doesn't it? Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you're delivering over 2 areas, then they kind of pick which one
Okay.
It is, and then they might choose the one that has got the headquarters in it if it was doing both. But if you're just delivering in one, it will go to that area.
Okay, I've got it. Okay, thank you. And so one up, just quick one. When you in your deck, when you said £20,000, I think you said over 2 years. Is that £20,000 per year over 2 years, or £20,000 spread over 2 years?
I'll go with that.
Yeah, 20,000 up to 2 years. So some people will ask for it over 1 year, others will for 2, depending.
Okay.
So
right.
if you get 20,000 over 1 year and you've spent it out and put in your end of project report and the grant is closed, you can then apply for another 20,000 for the next 12 months. So
Right.
you could get 40,000 over 2 years out of 2 separate projects, but you're not guaranteed to get the second one. We've put that in for the small organisations where 10,000 a year would be, most of their money that they would need over a couple of years, just to give them that extra bit of sustainability.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Awesome. Ashley, I think you were next.
Yeah, hi, and thanks for the presentation. I'm Ashley Ledbrook from Groundwork East, a community environmental charity across the east of England. We're no stranger to National Lottery funding and have in the past received pretty decent amounts of money from Reaching Communities and Awards for All. In particular, one to highlight there is we received Reaching Communities funding in Luton to deliver 6 community food growing hubs there. A few years back. In recent years, we've had flagged some issues around. So us not being a local charity, we're a regional charity. We find it quite hard to kind of have that community involvement from the early stages in kind of creating and designing the project. For us, it's kind of we kind of work extensively within the communities that we seek to serve. We see the need, we find the funding, and then we put the project together, and then the community is involved in that once that funding is in place, in kind of piecing that together and creating that project together with us. But because it kind of happens after the funding has been received, often it means that it's kind of more recently kind of discounting us from being able to prove that we've that the community is asking for and helped develop this from the earlier stages. So I guess my question is, like, any advice in this instance, particularly for the environmental stuff? I can kind of see some areas where the community might not necessarily know that there's a potential for a new environmental space to be opened up for them. For example, like say there's an area where we see that there could be a really awesome community food growing hub, or a new green space that is just currently like derelict, unused, closed off shrubland or something that could be turned into a green space, but the community might not know it's there. Or indeed, have asked for it, but we can see that there's something that could be used there. Any kind of advice on or tips on how we could kind of move a project like that forward, where we haven't had that specific initial community engagement to lead up to that point?
I guess, I'll start, but you may have to finish. I guess, what we sometimes say is that, you might have the idea, but it's how you're going to engage, because you're going to, how you may have the idea, but then what are your plans for engaging with the community, involving them in the definition and the implementation of the project? So, that's the way you would have to approach it, I think, isn't it, Heidi? It's like, what are your plans? How are you actually going to do this? So it's as much about how you're going to do the project, not just what you're going to do, and how you're going to make sure that the community are in the, in the forefront. Anything you want to add, Heidi?
I'm sorry.
So there's a project we've got down in the south of our region where there is a kick who is going into communities and they're putting postcards through people's doors, and they're like, if you're interested in getting involved in a community project, put this postcard in your window next Sunday afternoon and I'll come and put, you know, the next stage in. So they are going into a community and then they're finding out who wants, and then they bring all of those people together and then they say, what do you want to do? You know, what is it that you see in your community that you think is lacking? So that's how they get over it. And we understand in some projects, if you're going into an inner city area and, you know, people aren't connected with any, you know, they maybe haven't got any green spaces, or, you know, the park is very municipal and they don't feel that they can go in there, then you're almost starting that one step back where you've got to create the community interest in it. But I think we understand that we're going to need to fund some development type projects where you haven't got the community behind you yet. But going into an area and going, there's this site and it would make a wonderful growing site, that's kind of going in with the end game. So that is probably still challenging for us to fund. Whereas going into a community and saying, okay, who's interested in doing something to improve the community, bringing them together, and then, you know, with expert support, then saying, okay, so what is it? It's like, you know, are you bothered by the fact that there aren't any green spaces here? What do you want to do with the park? How can we help you do that? That's how I could see those projects going ahead.
So we could factor in kind of consultation and engagement costs into the project.
Yes, but again, it might be a development project with no guarantee of a project at the end, because
So for that alone,
with this project that we have funded, they're like, we go out and we put the cards out, and if people don't engage, we move on to the next village. You know, we move on to the next area. So there's almost no project there until people have engaged. So it's a development type project, which, yeah.
I'm just going to jump in just to let Clive ask his question. It sounds like that may be a conversation which needs a slightly more in-depth sort of email correspondence. So I'll share the details and the slides and recording so that can be carried on. But just Clive, if you want to, we've got a few minutes left.
Yeah, okay, brilliant. Well, thank you very much for the presentation. Yeah, really helpful and interesting. So thanks for that. I'm a trustee of a charity called Climate Change Gardening, and we're based in West Suffolk. And so what we do is engage with gardeners, and, you know, private gardens are the third largest land use in the UK after agriculture and after forestry and open land. And so we engage with private gardeners through library services or through gardening clubs or U3A groups and so on. And we encourage these sort of private gardeners to enrich the gardens, their own gardens primarily, their private gardens, in ways that are, you know, beneficial for climate mitigation in terms of carbon sequestration and water management and so on and so forth, but also important for wildlife as well. So creating new wildlife habitats in gardens, and, you know, whereas you can go so far with an individual garden where you get gardening clubs in a particular village or part of a town or whatever it is working together, then the sort of sum total, the sum total of all those bits of habitat adds up to more than the individuals sort of counted separately. So it's good for wildlife and good for climate. But the land that's being, if you like, the land that's being changed in terms of its management is private land, not common green space. Although we're working through community groups, you know, such as library networks and gardening club there. So the question is, you know, do you feel that that sort of process ultimately changes the land use in private property, private gardens, which, as I say, constitute a large chunk of the UK? Would that be relevant to the sort of outcomes that you're after?
I think this is definitely a Heidi one.
I think it would be a really interesting one for us to have a conversation about. I don't think we've got an answer. We have a basic principle of no private gain. So it looks challenging on that front, but it is meeting the overall aim of, if you could measure, if built into the project was measuring the difference, the increase in biodiversity in nature. Yeah, I think it would be an interesting one to look at, and it would probably depend where you were doing it. If you were doing it in a deprived area, then I think that was something we could potentially support. If you were doing it in a green leafy suburb, then that might be something that was more challenging. So I think there'd be quite a lot to unpack with it, but it'd certainly be an interesting conversation.
Okay, brilliant. That's really, really helpful. Yeah, thank you very much. Time's at 7 o'clock, Rowan, so I guess you're going to want me to stop there.
I was going to say that's perfect timing, because I think Teams doesn't actually allow the meeting to go on for too long afterwards, and it might accidentally kick us out. So I didn't want you to get cut off midway through. But as I've sort of said, the recording and the slides will be shared with some other information, and also that will then have on Shelagh and Heidi's details. So if you want to have any questions or carry on any conversations, thank you all for coming, basically, and thank you, Shelagh and Heidi, for joining me.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and thanks everyone. As you can probably, as you've gathered, we don't have all the answers yet. We're new in this forum, so it's been great to talk and start learning from you all as well.